Welcome to episode 5 of the Realise Mindfulness podcast. We've spent the first 4 episodes of the podcast building a firm foundation of mindfulness under our feet. From this place of grounded awareness, we can begin to explore some of our very human habits around reactivity, looking at how mindfulness can help us shift from a habitual reactivity to a wiser and kinder way of responding. In previous episodes, we've explored some of the longer formal practices for the 8-week mindfulness programs, and we've shared some suggestions for informally bringing mindful awareness into the moments of your day. If you haven't listened to these episodes already, you're warmly invited to, and likewise, you may prefer to jump straight into today's episode, where I'll share a short and simple practice, which is sometimes called the backbone of the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy program. It's the 3-step breathing space. The breathing space invites us to continue building the muscle of mindfulness in a very practical and accessible way. As we first introduce the breathing space into our daily routine, it can be helpful to commit to practice it regularly throughout the day. Perhaps you could find it helpful to agree with yourself some pre-decided times. For example, sometime around breakfast, lunch and dinner time. Some people find it helpful to set an alert on their phone to remind them to practice. Or post-it notes in strategic places like on the kettle and computer, as a reminder of the option to use the time when we're either waiting for the kettle to boil or the PC to boot up, as a time for a breathing space. As its name suggests, 3-step breathing space has 3 short and simple phases. The first step is to invite a broad awareness, an opening up to notice what's here now. The second step is to shine the narrow spotlight of our attention onto a chosen anchor, often our breath. The third step is to widen out once again to a broad sense of what's here now. Because of its shape, the 3-step breathing space is sometimes likened to an hourglass, beginning wide, narrowing in, and finally widening out again. There's also an initial phase where we set a clear intention to come to mindfulness, taking a pause, maybe adjusting our posture, setting an intention to arrive in mindful presence. So, if you're in a space where it's safe to do so and you're not driving right now, you're invited to join me as we practice the 3-step breathing space together now. Taking a breathing space and beginning by making a definite change in the posture so that you're sitting or standing with a sense of being awake, a sense of dignity, and allowing the eyes to close if that feels okay for you. So in step 1, becoming aware, tuning in here to whatever's in the mind or body right now. Maybe sensations, maybe some emotions. Noticing any thoughts and bringing interest to whatever you find. So not needing to change anything, just acknowledging whatever is here. And step 2, gathering. Narrowing the focus of attention now to settle on sensations of breathing or another steadying anchor point, wherever feels right for you right now. And moving in close to sensations here, tuning in to the full length of the in-breath and the full length of the out-breath. And noticing the turning point between in-breath and out-breath, between out-breath and in-breath. And if your anchor is somewhere else, noticing any sensations here. Maybe pressure, warmth, coolness, tightness, softness, or something else. Just noticing any and all sensations. And if the mind wanders, simply noticing where it's gone and gently guiding it back to this anchor point. Sensations here, now. And step 3. So beginning now to gently expand the field of awareness, zooming out to hold the whole of the body in awareness, the whole of the body as it sits here, as it breathes. And seeing how it is for you to soften or open to this experience. And then, when you're ready, allowing the eyes to open and seeing how it is to bring these attitudes of awareness and openness to the next moments of your day. As we become familiar with the 3-step breathing space, it can become second nature. And although the guided practice we just shared together was around 5 minutes, in daily life we can integrate the breathing space into the moments of our lives in less than a minute. Or, of course, if it's helpful, the 3 steps of the breathing space can also offer us a framework for a more extended period of practice. In this way, it's an extremely versatile practice and one that many participants report as a very helpful takeaway from their 8-week course. This is certainly my personal experience, and the breathing space has saved me from myself, or my patterns of reactivity that is, on a number of occasions. Notably, a few years ago in our local post office, when I was getting very agitated about the costs of sending a parcel to my mum post-Brexit. As my frustration threatened to overwhelm me, I had a sudden moment of mindful awareness, broadly becoming aware of the fact that I was very hot, tense, and bothered. I was able to acknowledge that I was feeling angry and frustrated. My face and hands in particular were very tense, and the temperature of my body was uncomfortably hot. I became aware that the post office was quite crowded. There were lots of people around me. With this broad awareness, I was then able to narrow down my focus of attention to my breath, taking a few deep breaths in and out, and feeling my feet on the floor. This momentary mindful pause enabled me to widen out awareness, to take in the bemused post office clerk in front of me, to recognise his humanness, and accept that he was just trying to do his job. So the breathing space may not be a magic wand, but it can become a valuable friend and a first response when we recognise we're feeling stressed, agitated, overwhelmed, or simply off balance. The breathing space also offers a mindful pause, an opportunity to step out of habitual reacting and create space to be at choice, potentially choosing to respond in a wiser, more nourishing way. In the words of mindfulness teacher Tara Brach, mindfulness is a pause, the space between stimulus and response. And that's where choice lies. As we get familiar with the breathing space, we can adapt it, making tweaks to help calm the nervous system, for instance with a soothing breathing rhythm to invite the parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes called our rest and digest reflex, back online. We may also want to consider what's needed now, how we can best care for ourselves or those around us, as we broaden out in the final stage. You can get a flavour of this responsive style of breathing space in the next short 5-minute guided practice. And if it's safe for you to do so, and if you're not driving, you may like to join me once more in practice. This is a responsive breathing space. So, beginning by making a definite change in the posture, so that you're sitting with a sense of being awake, a sense of dignity, and allowing the eyes to close if that feels okay, or simply allowing the gaze to soften and drop. And for step 1, becoming aware, noticing what's here in the body and mind. Maybe some sensations in the body, perhaps some emotions, or noticing any thoughts that might be here. You might want to silently name them, label them, maybe planning, worry. Self-critical thoughts maybe are here. Questioning and daydreaming. Bringing interest to whatever you find and not needing to change anything. Simply recognizing, acknowledging whatever's here. And for step 2, gathering. So gathering and narrowing the focus of attention now to settle on the breath, wherever you notice this most clearly, or wherever you choose to feel it. Or another anchor point if that's more helpful for you. So moving in close to the sensations here. And if it's helpful, you may choose to count the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. 2. Or simply naming the breaths. Simply breathing in and breathing out. Being with the breath. And noticing if the mind wanders. Recognizing where it's gone. Gently guiding it back to the sensations of breathing and the counting or naming of the breaths if that's helpful for you. And step 3, expanding. So gently expanding the field of awareness now to the body as a whole. The body as it sits here and breathes. Noticing any signs of reactivity within the broader field of awareness. Maybe there's some tightening or holding in the body. Maybe a sense of bracing against or pulling away. And if this is here, seeing how it is to respond with kindness, with gentleness, breathing with these sensations. Bringing some compassion to whatever is being experienced in the body and mind right now. And if it feels right for you, keeping in contact with whatever is here. Maybe saying to yourself, whatever it is, it's already here. So let me experience this, just for this moment. I don't have to like it, just noticing it's here. And then, when you're ready, allowing the eyes to open if they've been closed, and taking in this sense of expanded awareness and openness, carrying it forward to the next moments of your day. And throughout all this, the invitation is to bring the attitude of a kind and curious scientist to our experience. We can notice our stress reaction, getting clear on what commonly triggers this and how we react when we get triggered. If it feels okay for you, maybe we can consider that now. Perhaps for you, a common stressor is getting stuck in traffic or receiving a challenging email. Or perhaps the many dings, bings and pings of our phones and social accounts that clamour for our attention. No doubt you have your own list of common culprits. And what happens in the body when you notice you're stressed? Variations on tension and clenching, tightness, churning and discomfort often show up in the forehead, the throat, chest and belly, to name a few common bodily reactions to stress. And how do you typically react when you get stressed? Do you get angry and frustrated with others? Or maybe retreat into yourself? Perhaps you attempt to soothe or numb with comfort food, drink, or maybe binge watching Netflix. I know one reflex reaction for me when I get stressed is to reach for a bar of chocolate. And how do these reactions make you feel in the medium and long term? Maybe they're soothing in the moment. That's why we do it after all. It feels compelling and it makes sense at the time. However, as the initial sense of relief wears off, we're sometimes left with a hangover of guilt or frustration with ourselves, or simply the acknowledgement that the relief is short-lived and that the soothing reaction is not sustainable. And maybe, like me, you also have some adaptive responses for dealing with stress. Perhaps it's going for a walk in nature, making a cup of herbal tea, or talking with someone who understands, or something else that you know works well for you. These adaptive responses are generally nourishing, sustainable, and contribute towards long-term well-being. Our meditation practice can become one of these nourishing adaptive responses. And many clients who work with me recognize the possibility of this but also comment that although meditation practice is supportive when things are calm and going well, it's very difficult to call on it as a resource when things get tough, when we get triggered and are in the midst of a moment of reactivity. Of course, this is true. It's very human. And it's one reason why regular daily practice is a core foundation of mindful living. Mindfulness is just like a muscle. We have to exercise it regularly for it to be fit and strong. We wouldn't expect to go to the gym once, or even once a week, and see dramatic results in our strength and stamina. Rather, we need a consistent, ongoing well-being program. And it's the same with our mindfulness meditation practice. So for the 3-step breathing space to become a reliable tool to call on in moments of stress and reactivity, it helps if we practice it regularly at moments of calm, as suggested earlier in the episode. And in this way, with practice, this way of mindfully responding can become more habitual. And with practice, patience, and much kindness, over time, we begin to recognize our moments of reactivity and open up to the possibility of responding with a more considered, compassionate, and mindful response. So with ongoing practice, we begin, moment by moment, to thread mindfulness through the very fabric of our lives.